Hey guys, it's Jeremy here at Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What we got for today, guys, is the next installment of my 10 favorite albums from each section of the band's lineup. So we did the debut album, so this is my 10 of my favorite second albums in the band's lineup, or discography, I should say, or the sophomore albums. And then I'll continue on the series doing my top 10 third albums, fourth albums, etc. And these aren't necessarily my definitive favorites of all time. These are just 10 I picked off the top of my head. There's a million really good albums in the second album time slot that I could have picked for this. But I went with ones I listen to the most, I have a lot of history with, or I think are just some of the all-time favorites. And I tried to mix it again of a little bit older bands, some newer stuff. It's kind of a mix of stuff that I'm really into. So let's get into it, guys. Not really any particular order. The top two or three in this list, or four really, are probably my 3 or 4 all-time favorite second albums. But the rest are just kind of ones I picked that I listen to very frequently and I just really enjoy and I just wanted to put on the list. So number 10, I have Hell Awaits by Slayer. My second favorite Slayer album of all time. Super evil sounding, cavernous. There's a lot of reverb on this album. Very heavy and evil sounding. Love this album. Always been one of my favorites. Wanted to make it on the list. Next we got Cause of Death by Obituary. Obituary's always been one of my favorite death metal bands, and this has always been my favorite album of theirs. They have a ton of groove in their music, but it's still super raw and aggressive death metal. I really enjoy their sound. Always been one of my favorites, and I really wanted to put Cause of Death. One, because it is my favorite album from the band, and always been one of my favorite death metal albums in general. Next we got Death with Leprosy, one of the best album covers of all time and one of my favorite albums in the Death catalog. A little bit more refined than their debut album, not quite as raw, but still has the intensity and grit of the death metal, but production's a little bit better on this album in general, but an all-time classic death metal album. Had to make my list. Can't go wrong with Death. Next we got a newer band. Again, not necessarily my favorite of all time, but one I wanted to include because it's a much newer band. It's the band Eternal Champion with the album Ravening Iron. This was my number one album of 2020, so it is definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a traditional heavy metal band out of Austin, Texas. Really love their sound, just super epic, fist in the air kind of metal. Really good guitar leads and solos, really cool soaring vocals. If you're not familiar with these guys, please check them out. They only have 2 albums so far. They're definitely due for a new album. It's been 5 years now. But their debut, I could have put on their debut list as well, but wanted to kind of mix it up and not put the same bands all the time. But yeah, love their second album, a newer band I'm really into. Dying for new material from them, Eternal Champion, killer stuff. Next we got The New Order by Testament, second Testament album to make the list. This is my favorite Testament album of all time, with tracks like the title track, Trial by Fire, Into the Pits, like a monster track. The Preacher is really good, Day of Reckoning, Disciples of the Watch. Oh, this album had just so many bangers and so many just mosh pit classics. I had to make my list. I fucking love Testament. Currently my favorite thrash metal band and my favorite album by them. And number 5, I have another Metallica album, Ride the Lightning. Always been my favorite Metallica album. It's got my favorite Metallica song, which is Creeping Death. But again, guys, it's an all-time Fight Fire with Fire, the title track, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, Creeping Death, like Trapped Under Ice. Like every song's a banger. Old school Metallica is almost nothing better than it. And I had to make my list. I just have so much nostalgia with this album. And one I grew up listening to. Probably one of my top 3 listened to albums of all time, to be honest. I've listened to this thousands of times. Still listen to it to this day. Probably on a monthly basis, pretty often still. Killer stuff. Number 4, we have another newer band, Chemist. Probably one of my favorite newer doom metal bands, if not my favorite. They only have like 5 or 6 albums, I think, in total, but this is their second, and my favorite of theirs, called Hunted. One of the coolest artworks on this one as well, really cool color tones and cool imaging with like the wizard kind of guy on his chariot kind of thing, really cool stuff. So I got 5 tracks in total, but it's a killer album. The title track is 13.5 minute epic. Listen to that song, it'll blow your mind away. Love these guys, had to make my list. One of my all-time favorite second albums of all time, easily. Next we got Nightfall by Candlemass. Probably my favorite doom metal album of all time. Epic doom metal with like a lot of melody still on chorus. Great vocals on this one, great guitar work. Always been my favorite Candlemass album. And this one instantly came to my mind as a favorite second album. It's just a monster of an album, and it's just killer. It's a perfect album. Next we got Nightmare Logic by Power Trip, released in 2017. Definitely a newer album as well. This is like a top 10 album for me of all time. It's that good, guys. This is one of my favorite thrash albums and crossover. Unfortunately, we lost Riley, the lead singer. I think they're still touring with like a replacement singer. It'll never be the same without Riley, but I hope if they do make new music, they kind of put it under a different name, to be honest. But Power Trip was a beast of a band. Only 2 albums put out in total so far. And Nightmare Logic is a monster album. This one I listen to like weekly still. I never get sick of it. Every song's a banger. Killer band. Instantly came to my mind as probably the second one that came to my mind right away. And the one I have at number 1 is my favorite album of all time, Rainbow Rising. It was no brainer. Ronnie James Dio, Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Bain, Cozy Powell, the greatest lineup in rock and metal history, in my opinion. One of the most iconic album covers of all time. And the song Stargazer is probably my favorite hard rock metal song of all time. It's just so epic. It just builds and builds and builds. But every song in this album is a 10 out of 10. 6 tracks of pure bliss. Easily number 1 second album for me. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know down below what your picks would be for second albums in the discography. Some quick honorable mentions. Of course, I missed a million bands before you guys go crazy in the comments. I could put Spreading to the Disease by Anthrax as a killer album that almost made my list. I could have put Peace Sells, But Who's Buying by Megadeth was a big one. I picked Merciful Fate, Don't Break the Oath was a big one as well. But there's a ton of albums I could have picked, guys. Another monster one was Creator's Pleasure to Kill. That was a monster one. I barely did make my list. But any of those are worthy of the list, guys. Like I said, there's so many. You have to kind of just narrow it down to best you can. Like Iron Maiden Killers was another monster one that should have really made my list, but I don't listen to it quite as much as these ones. And like I said, I wanted to include some newer stuff as well. So it's not necessarily my set in stone favorite, 10 favorites, but I wanted to kind of mix it up and put a blend of different stuff and not just the typical big time classic albums that everyone would put the same kind of stuff, if you know what I mean. And Black Sabbath, Paranoid, that one should have made my list. It just popped in my head. That one should have made my list. That was like my favorite Ozzy era of Sabbath. Sabbath should have made my list. I would have taken one off to put Sabbath on. Probably I would have taken off like Hello Aids or something for the Paranoid. So that one should have been on my list. But let me know down below, guys, what your picks would be. And stay tuned for the top 10 third albums in a band's discography. Keep it metal, guys.